Listen, sorry for the technical difficulties. Hopefully, y'all will find me. I disconnected my camera while I was moving my computer, and then there was no picture. So I had to start all over again. And once you end the recorded live or the scheduled live, you can't restart it. So I hope you all find me. If you don't, I hope you all find me because I had to restart the whole thing. So hopefully you can find me. I'm gonna put it in my. I'm gonna put the new. I'm also gonna share. Let's see if I can share this with other people. Um, so that people can find me because I accidentally had to end the stream. Let's see. No, it's not giving me a link. All right. Well, if you follow me, you'll be able to find me. Yes. Hi, Tamara. You found me. Listen, girl, I had to start the whole thing over. I accidentally disconnected my webcam and had to start a whole brand new live. So as people are coming in, hopefully y'all can find me. You found me, so that's the good news. People are finding me. I had to restart the whole thing. I'm going to just do. Oh, more people are coming in. Also, good. Y'all are finding me because listen, I had to restart the whole thing. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Put a yes in the chat if you can hear me loud and clear. You can see me well. My voice, I drank some tea earlier today. I haven't been talking all day, so I can save my voice for tonight. But if you hear me go in and out, please forgive me. I had an amazing, awesome, good. You guys can hear me. Had an amazing weekend with my youth ministry. I serve on my youth ministry. We had a youth retreat, and I was doing a lot of talking. So this was better than yesterday. So I'm glad it's better than what it was yesterday. So yes, welcome, guys. Thank you for coming in. Share this if you are on here and you're live. Let people know to log in because listen, we're going to be talking about how to let go and forgive. And so many people need this level of healing, and so I just pray that it really touches people's hearts and it really gets people to understand what forgiveness means for them, what that process will look like for them, and how to start it. Because forgiveness is hard, y'all. Can we keep it real about forgiveness? It is hard. And so this is going to be a definitely an open and honest and authentic conversation about forgiveness and why it's hard. We're going to talk about why it's hard. Let's be real and honest, and definitely want to hear from you guys too of like why it's hard for you, or just have what you observed in your experiences and other people. We're going to talk about why it's important. Like, why do you need to forgive? Like, is it really necessary? Like, why is forgiveness? We talk about people. You hear people say all the time that you need to forgive, but why? Why do we even need to forgive in the first place? Because understanding the why you need to forgive will help you get through the hard part about forgiveness. It will help you keep pushing, even though it's hard. And then we're going to talk about how to forgive. So that's the main agenda for today. I'm just going to post something in on my socials real quick, just so I can so people can know that they can find me and I'm here. And put in a chat on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being awesome, 1 being meh. I could do better. How was your weekend? Rate in the chat your weekend. Tell me, let me know how your weekend was. I know Mondays can be a little hard, especially if you had a dope weekend. You might be exhausted. And you're like, I'm still recovering from our weekend, how I am. So put in the chat how your weekend is going, or how did your weekend go? I would love to hear from you. Oh, 8-9. I love it. Yes, 8-9. That is awesome. I'm with you. I had a good, mine's like a 9-10. I had a good 9-10. Mine's a good 9-10. Let's see. Let me see if I can connect on here so I can share. Well, you know what? They can just hop on. They can just hop on. I'm just gonna do a quick video, y'all, while you guys are here. And What's up? I had to restart my live for tonight. So if you're looking to join me for how to let go and forgive, just hop onto the Speak Like Transformation TV YouTube channel. I'm live right now. Join the rest of the crew. Yes, where are we at? Where are we at? There we go. Oh, join the rest of the crew on YouTube. Again, it's Speak Like Transformation TV. You can just youtube.com/ at Speak Like Transformation TV. See you there. We're about to get started. All right, let's get this party started. Oh, another person had an awesome weekend. Oh my goodness. Demara, you're in the 4040 Club. Welcome to the 4040 Club, girl. Welcome. Hope you had an amazing birthday. My friend, she celebrated her 40th this weekend too. She was away on vacation. We getting old, y'all. We getting old. All right, so let's talk about why forgiveness is hard. Put it in the chat for you, or you. I mean, if you don't want to share your personal story, you could just say in general why you think it's hard to forgive. So, from your own opinion, put it in the chat. Why is forgiveness hard? Why do you think it's hard for people to forgive and to let go? That holding on piece. Listen, sometimes we hold on to it strong. So, why is it hard to let go? Why is it hard to forgive? I'd love to hear your thoughts before I go in and tell you my thoughts on why it's hard to forgive. What are your thoughts? Why do you think it's hard to let go and forgive, or from your experience of seeing it in other people? I love to hear from you. And as you're coming in, welcome, welcome. We're talking about forgiveness and letting go. Share why you think it's hard to forgive. Sometimes when we're initially hurt, there's forgiveness is not even a thought. We're like, forgive what and why? No, thank you. And so sometimes, yeah, you try to rationalize the other people's behaviors. Yeah, that could be hard for sure. If you're trying to um and rationalize this, it can be a couple ways, right? Rationalizing, trying to understand why they're doing it to make sense. That's that closure. We're gonna talk about that closure piece. Sometimes we try to rationalize because we're trying to find closure, or we're waiting for them to explain all the reasons behind the behavior, which then delays the sense of closure for sure. Um, Yeah. So for those who are watching, it says it's hard to forgive at times because of holding on to the expectations, or feeling like you wouldn't do whatever it is to that person. Yeah. Yeah. That is such a great point, because a lot of times the expectations we have for other people is based on how we would handle things, right? And that goes back to what you were saying about, then we have this idea that, well, I wouldn't do something like that. Like, why would somebody even do that? Like, that's just silly, or that's just crazy. Like, how would they? I would never do that to somebody, right? And a lot of times we forget that, but we're not that person. That person is not us. And that is so true. Those expectations of expecting the person to treat you the way you would treat the world, or to show up in the world the way you would show up in the world, right? Definitely can make it hard to forgive for sure. So I'm going to share with you that 5 points, 5 points on why forgiveness can be hard. So if you have a paper, pen, whatever you use to take notes, here's some things to jot down. Why forgiveness hard? So these are reasons why I have thought about forgiveness being hard. Make sure my webcam does not fall off again. Sometimes forgiveness can be hard because for some reason, there is this myth, and a lot of these are myths too. So think about these as myths, right? That people have about forgiveness. One misunderstanding or misconception about forgiveness is that if I forget, that means I have to forget about what happened, right? And I pulled some of these from my recent posts. Those recent posts that I did on forgiveness was actually kind of giving you like a sneak peek to what today's conversation was going to be all about. And one of the things that prevents us, the misconceptions, the misunderstandings about forgiveness that prevents us from wanting to forgive or forgiving, is that we feel like, well, that means I have to forget, and I don't want to forget. I don't want to forget, and I can't forget. I don't want to forget, and or I can't forget, right? And also feels really invalidating to feel like you have to just forget what happened to you like it never happened before. And it's even more invalidating when the person who did the harm is acting like it never happened. So it's even more invalidating. So then there's this idea of like this person just wants me to move on like it never happened. Like I'm supposed to just forgive and then move on. Because sometimes the other person's ready to move on because obviously they want things to be better. They want all the tension and things to go away, or it didn't really have the same effect on you as it did them. So they're ready to move on and move on like nothing happened, or move on and repair and keep going without really dealing with the hurt that's still there. And so that's one misconception. And the reality of it is you don't have to forget. Forgiveness is not here, is not created. The purpose of it is not for you to forget. And so getting rid of that myth or that misconception is so important. Another one is, hey, dad. Another one is waiting for the person to provide you with closure. I just mentioned this earlier. Sometimes it's hard to forget it because you're waiting for the other person to say what you need to hear for you to feel like, okay, now I can forgive. Now I can let go because they either explained and now I get why they did it, or they apologized, right? Or they, whatever that is. And that kind of goes with the expectations too. Like you're expecting the person to admit that they were wrong, or you're expecting the person to say a certain thing, or to have a certain attitude, or feelings, or hurt about it, or emotion about it, in order for you to feel like, okay, now I can move on. And meanwhile, you are still hurting because that person not giving you what you need. And so within that process, that waiting for them to give you the closure, that waiting for them to say what you want to hear, or do what you want them to do, is giving them the power to say when you can let go. Because what you're saying is, I can't let go until they do X, right? But they determine when or if they're even going to do X. So you're giving them so much more power of you being able to move on by waiting on them to do whatever that is, that, and as if you have control. I didn't put this as a misconception, but one misconception. Well, let me look at the other ones. Well, one of them kind of talks about this, but one thing about not letting go of, or not wanting to let go or wanting to forgive, is because that staying angry, staying upset with that person, choosing to not forgive is a sense of control, right? It's a sense of getting back, right? Like you can't hurt me if I no longer allow you in my life, or I don't talk to you no more, or if I just like just shut you out of my life, right? You can't hurt me anymore if I'm it's this idea that if I treat you the way you treated me, or if I am treating you in an unkind way, then I'm hurting you back. And so I'm not going to be nice to you. I'm not going to treat you fairly. I'm not going to respect you until you show me that respect back, or you acknowledge or take responsibility for what you did to me. So this level of control that also prevents us from, it's not even a level, it's this false sense of control that we are having in this moment when we're holding on. So that's another thing. And that really connects with some of the other two on here that I'm going to talk about. The third one is believing that in order to forgive, you have to remain in the relationship or continue it as it was before the hurt. Sometimes there is this misconception that if I forgive, then that means I have to stay in a relationship, or I have to stay connected to this person, or I have to just move on and make it better, as if the hurt wasn't there, or um, as if I'm not still hurting, even though I have said I forgave, right? And the reality of it is, you don't have to stay in a relationship if you don't want to. The boundaries are okay, but you want to make sure they're not revengeful boundaries. And this goes back to what I was saying just a few minutes ago about how we can use the anger, a sense of revenge, to that sense of wanting to get this person back. You hurt me, I hurt you type of thing, as a way of controlling the situation, and as a way of feeling like I feel better now that I'm making you hurt the way that you hurt me. And so sometimes we set boundaries consciously and then subconsciously in a way that's still trying to hurt or get back that other person, right? You're never going to be in my life anymore. My boundary is like kicking you out of my life, right? And it's like, well, if you're doing it in a sense of revenge, if you're doing it as a way to get the other person back, not as a way of healing and repairing the relationship, then it's definitely a revengeful boundary, right? But you do not have to stay in the relationship. The hurt happened, it's real. And as a result, the hurt is going to shift the dynamic of the relationship. It might even shift how you even think about that person. And all that is okay. And so when you're thinking about um the boundaries you want to set, you're thinking about, okay, well, based on this hurt, how do I want to continue this relationship? Do I still want to continue this relationship? Is this still, a relationship still going to be healthy for me? And if I do want this person still in my life, what is that going to look like now that now this hurt exists? What do I need to do to help move through this hurt so that there's some repair happening? Or does the relationship just looks different? And it might look different because some hurt is there. So, and that is normal and that is okay. Yeah. Yeah, someone put in chat, giving is not for them, it's for you. And by doing so, you take the power from them very much so. Forgiveness is a level of freedom. We're going to talk about that. It feels like sometimes holding on to the hurt is a level of freedom because it's like, I'm not allowing you to hurt me, so I'm freeing myself from you. But really, the anger, the bitterness, the sense of betrayal, the fear of rejection, the fear of abandonment is actually holding you more bondage to that person, to the situation, and not allowing you to move forward. Another thing is where you wanting the person to pay. This goes back to what we were talking about the revenge. This sense of you wanting the person to pay back. This is why it can be hard to forgive. Talking about why it's hard to forgive. You wanting to pay the person back. It's like, no, I don't want to forgive. There's just a stubbornness, but it's not really stubbornness. It's just a level of hurt. Like you're hurt, you're in pain, right? There's a level of anger. Um, and so it's hard to forgive because you don't want to let go of those feelings. Even though those feelings are painful, they're a reminder of why I don't want you in my life, right? And they help me get you back, right? So just letting go of the anger, then I feel more vulnerable because now if I'm not angry, then I'm sad. If I'm not angry, then I'm feeling embarrassed or shameful. If I'm not angry, right, it's like then I'm having these vulnerable feelings. And so staying angry, I feel like I'm able to get you back for what you did, right? And so there's this idea that if I forgive them, I'm letting them off the hook then. It's like, no, 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 you're not letting the person off the hook. It's really for you. The forgiveness is for you. And so there's this misconception that by forgiving, I'm saying, well, it's okay what you did to me, and you feel that way because it's like I'm not getting them back, right? I'm not staying angry at this person. I'm not keeping them at distance or punishing them in any kind of way, right? By avoiding them or not talking to them or not looking at them or not allowing them in my life, right? So if I forgive, then it's saying you get off the hook, and that's not the case either. um the last one I have is wanting to punish yourself for the harm you cause, believing that forgiving is a way of holding yourself accountable. So we talk about forgiveness a lot of times. And when I say we, I mean just as a society, we talk about forgiveness a lot of times about how to forgive the other person. But I also want to talk about how it's important to forgive yourself. And many times it's hard to forgive our own selves because of the shame that we feel about whatever we did, whatever harm we caused, whatever mistake we've made. And sometimes there's this idea that I can't forgive myself because I don't deserve the forgiveness because what I did, I hurt people, hurt family or friends that I care about, right? Or I put myself in a situation and it was my fault why I did this. And if I forgive myself, then I'm just gonna make an excuse for what I did, or I'm not gonna hold myself accountable. I'm not taking responsibility for what I did. And that's a misconception because forgiveness does not require you to punish yourself, right? You don't have to punish yourself in order to get to a place of forgiveness. You can definitely forgive yourself and take responsibility and allow yourself to move through those feelings. That's an example of healthy shame. Unhelpful and unhealthy shame will have you take responsibility, because that's what the function of shame is to help you take responsibility for your actions, right? That's when we feel shameful because we recognize what we did was wrong or was harmful or it wasn't the best choice, right? And that in a way that's good, right? We need shame, we need to take responsibility. But unhealthy shame will have you get stuck in that, where you do the self-punishment, there's a critical self-talk, and you're saying to yourself, I don't deserve forgiveness because I did X, right? But healthy shame would say, yeah, I did X. and I still deserve grace. I'm still a good person and I can still learn from this, and helps you move through it as you're taking responsibility. So there's this myth that if I just like we were saying for other somebody else, if I forgive them, I'm letting them off the hook. Even with self-forgiveness is like that. If I forgive myself, then I'm letting myself off the hook, right? Both are untrue. I would love for you guys to share any other myths that you think that you've come across, or or you've heard of, um, or misconceptions, of why people may not forgive. Please share it in chat. Take and think about for your own self. Do any of these connect with you? I'll repeat them one more time. I like to do a recap always, especially for those who are just joining us. We were talking about why forgiveness is hard. One, believing you have to forget. That's why. If you believe that you have to forget, it's going to be hard to forgive. Waiting for the other person to provide you with closure. It's going to be hard to let go and forgive if you aren't. More so, it's gonna be hard for you to let go if you're waiting for the person to give you the closure that you need, tell you reasons why they did what they did, or causing you were waiting for the person to do a certain thing or apologize, right? Another reason why it's hard to forgive is that you believe that forgiveness means you have to then maintain or remain in the relationship, and that's not true. You can forgive and then decide, you know what, I have forgiven this person, I'm truly forgiven, but I recognize that this relationship is just not for me, right? And that's okay. That's okay, because hurt can change the dynamic of a relationship. Harm can change how you see the other person. Another reason why it can be hard is that you're wanting the person to pay for the harm they caused. And you feel like, well, if I forgive, I'm letting them off the hook, and they're not going to pay for what they did to me. That could be another reason why it's hard to forgive. And then the final reason why it can be hard to forgive is that you're wanting to punish yourself for similar to what we just said just now about the other person. You want to punish yourself because you feel like you don't deserve forgiveness because of the harm that you caused. And forgiveness is just going to cause you to not take accountability and responsibility for your actions. So that's another reason why it can be hard to forgive. Now let's talk about why. Why forgiveness? Why should you forgive? Why should you forgive? So one, I just mentioned earlier, release, right? Release. And as I'm going through these things, especially when I start to go over the how to forgive, I want you guys to think about a person in your life, a situation, like where what situation or person have you find it hard to forgive. So before I actually go into the why, I want you to just take a moment, think about, is there someone in your life that you have struggled with forgiving? I'm even going to test you and think about, because sometimes we say we forgave somebody, we really didn't forget the person. Because and we're gonna talk about then we're gonna get to this part to the why, but we say, "Oh, I forgave this person." Like, I'm not even thinking about no more. Like, I don't even care about that person. I'm not even worried about that. Like, I'm good, right? But then it's like, are you really? Because if bring up the person's name, or you go to the situation where the harm happened, or you're around people that's connected to that person, do you find yourself, or you have you're around situations that remind you of that person or the situation, right? Do you find yourself experiencing some of that hurt still? Maybe it might not be as intense, but is it still coming up? Do you find yourself, still feeling a sense of, whatever those hurt emotions are, anger, betrayal, rejection, abandonment, right? Are you still, those different emotions that you felt when the harm first started, do they still come up? If you saw that person in person, you see them in person, or think about seeing that person in person, right? Does those feelings come back up? And if so, then you haven't fully forgiven the person. If you find yourself avoiding situations because of that person or situation, you haven't fully forgived or healed. I'll say forgive and healed, So something to think about, and really ask yourself, where is there a person or situation that I haven't myself, even there's something with me. Have I not forgiven myself for something? Right? It might not even be another person, it might be yourself. So really think about that. Yeah. And we're going to talk about changing perspective, right? What that means to change your perspective, because that's part of the how. So let's talk about why. So one, the reason why it's important to forgive is because you want to release yourself from the bondage that the lack of forgiveness is causing. Let me tell you, there is so many strongholds that are connected to unforgiveness. When you don't forgive, you end up staying connected to a lot of the feelings and emotions and thoughts and different things that's connected to that situation, and then you end up bringing it to your present, and it goes along with you to your future. I'm sure you guys saw many of those like illustrations of like someone carrying baggage, right? Or boxes, right? And then each box or each bag has a feeling in it, or it has like a thought in it, right? And it's showing that this person is taking all that baggage or luggage with them as they're going up. Some illustrations are like the person's walking up the steps with the luggage or the baggage, right? Some is showing the person's just walking forward, right, with all the baggage, right? And it's because when you don't fully heal from that hurt or harm, it's with you. And you can hide it all you want. You can ignore it, distract yourself from it, move on in different relationships. But if you don't deal with it, if you don't fully forgive, it's with you. It's going to come right with you. Right. And so when you forgive, it releases you from a lot of that. Right. It releases you from those emotional hurts. I mentioned that before, the shame, right? The blame, the betrayal, the rejection, the abandonment, right? Even loneliness, maybe, right? The worthlessness, right? Any of that, it can really release you from a lot of that. It releases you, and this is what I was saying earlier, from avoiding certain places or people. And you may not even consciously recognize this, that you don't go to certain places because you're afraid that that person might be there, right? Or you don't go to certain places because it reminds you of when you used to go there with that person, right? Or that might be somewhere that there's a connection, like people, you and that person know similar people, and so you don't go there because you don't want to see those people, because you don't want to talk about what happened, or you don't want them asking questions, or you don't want, etc. Right? You might find yourself avoiding people and places because there's still hurt there. If there's still this feeling like, I don't want to be around this, I don't want to be around this situation, I don't want to be around this person because it reminds me of the hurt, it's still bothering you. You're still connected to it. And a lot of times that causes you to end up missing out on opportunities, missing out on chances, and because you may being offered an opportunity for something, you're like, no, I'm not doing it. Or you are interest. Your friends might be inviting you somewhere, and you're like, no, I'm not going there because X works there, and I'm not going because X, whoever X, Y. I'm just putting X as in letter, not necessarily as an ex, as an ex-boyfriend, but just because X person is going to be there, and I don't want to associate myself with them. I don't want to be there with that person, right? And the hurt can also be, even when I did a live a long time ago, and talk about the different areas of like people that we need to forgive, and I put ourselves, I put family, and I put maybe like people, haters, right? And so it's like you might find yourself avoiding because you don't want to be around that person. You associate the place with that person, right? And then going along with that, another reason why, another thing it can free you from is judging certain groups. So a lot of that hurt, we talk about avoiding certain groups, but you might also, or people, you might also find yourself judging certain people, right? I don't want to work for that type of company because I work for someone within that type of field or a company, and they did X to me, they did me dirty, they didn't value me. And so I don't want to deal with any company in that field, or I want to deal with anybody who works in that company or in that on that sector, right? And you might have an opportunity, and you are now passing it because you're associating this one person or this one group of people, and you're applying it to everybody, right? Or I don't date that type of person anymore because I dated somebody like that, and it was horrible. There was a lot of betrayal, lies, and so I don't date anybody in that type of group, from that background or that type of group, or from that city or from that neighborhood, right? And then before you know it, you might be missing out on an opportunity of finding someone that actually you connect with. And so without even realizing it, if you don't forgive, you could be judging a group of people. I don't like men. My father was never there for me. Nope. I don't trust men. They're liars, they're dogs. I dated somebody, he was a big liar. He cheated on me. I don't trust no guys. Right. And then before you know it, um you are getting you are causing yourself to be disconnected, right, from opportunities or places or things, and you're having a certain perception of a group of people without even realizing it because you're holding on to that hurt. So thinking about that as well. um there's people trying to get on and they can't find me, so I'm going to let them know I'm here on live. uh Sorry, y'all. I usually don't do replays, but I'm definitely gonna make this a replay for this reason because I did an error there. All right. Another reason to let go is releasing yourself from being responsible for information you had in the past. Sometimes for this is regarding when you gotta forgive yourself. Is when sometimes we don't forgive ourselves because we're like, I should have known better. I should have did something different. I should have saw this coming, right? And a lot of the times you are basing what you know now, your present self, right? What you know now, like they say, hindsight's 2020, right? And so now you can look back, you can see how everything unfolded, right? And so yeah, you can connect the dots way better now. But back then you didn't have that information. You had none of the information that you have right now. And a lot of times we don't forgive ourselves because we're holding ourselves accountable for information we presently have and not holding ourselves accountable for the information we had at the time. And so when you really look at it that way, it's a lot easier to be able to forgive yourself and you recognize, well, yeah, no, I didn't have the information. And when I look back, yeah, I actually was just doing what I knew, what I thought was best. I didn't know this person was going to respond this way, or I didn't know this was going to happen. And so I was just doing what I thought was best with the information I had. Right. And so when you allow yourself to release yourself from that responsibility for this new information that you have now, then it helps you forgive your past self for the decisions you made. Taking responsibility or holding the person accountable does not require revenge or self punishment, right? Also recognizing that you can forgive and you don't there it does not require you to punish yourself the other person because this is more about you. Forgiveness is more about letting you go. When you take the person out of the equation, right? And you no longer are thinking about why this person deserves forgiveness. That's how we make forgiveness about the other person. We are thinking, does this person really deserve my forgiveness? Does this person deserve to have me in their life? Does this person deserve to be let go or off the hook for the harm that they cause, right? And so when we look at it and that way of forgiveness being deserving of the other person, then you are really giving a lot of the power and control to the other person. Because even though it feels like you're in control, really you are putting a lot of control on the other person because you're expecting the person to show up a certain way. You're expecting the person to act a certain way in order for you to say, okay, I'm going to forgive this person. Meanwhile, and this is a perfect example of how you know the other person has control. I'm sure you've been in situations or you've heard many stories where you or the person is upset, they're hurt, and the person who caused the harm, they went on with the day. They're having a good old time. They living their best life, right? And you or the person that was harmed is the one who's still upset, who's still angry, who's still feeling sad or feeling embarrassed or disappointed or all the different things that come up, right? And you're like, well, how can they just go on with their lives? Like they're the one they're the reason why I'm here. They're the reason why I feel the way I feel. Like how are they have the audacity for them to be able just to keep going with their life? Like they didn't just cause this harm, right? It's because you are putting the control on them to release you from all that emotional stress and distress instead of you taking the power to release yourself. And forgiveness is helping you. It's all about you releasing yourself. When you choose to forgive, what you're saying is, I am choosing to no longer allow myself to be bondage, allowing this stronghold to be connected to me. because you're the only one that has the power to let that go. The person can't make you let it go, and the person has no power to let it go. Because think about it, it's your perception. I will let go when this person does X. This person says sorry, or this person, explains why they did it, and then I would determine if their explanation is enough for me to let go, right? You're still, at the end of the day, you are still choosing when you're going to let go. So you think about it, right? When you're doing it that way, you're choosing to let go only when this person does what you want them to do, and that you've defined it as being enough to let go and forgive. But those things that you're waiting for the person to do, they have to choose to do that. So if you're looking at like what comes first, what comes after, right? What comes first is what you're saying is, okay, I will forgive when this person decides. You're not saying decides, but because in your mind you're feeling like you were in control of this, right? But what's happening is you're saying, I will let go when this person decides to apologize. I will let go when this person decides to acknowledge the harm they caused. I will let go when this person decides to explain and give me a reasonable explanation for why they were hurt me, right? So then what you're saying is what has to happen first is this person saying the right thing, doing the right thing, acting the right way. But you have no control over them doing any of that. They have to choose that. So you're just going to be waiting. And then you're just going to get more upset because you're going to see they're not doing any of those things you want them to do. They're not saying any things you want them to say. Meanwhile, they're living their best life and you're the one upset, miserable, not living your best life. And then that causes a big old cycle. That causes you to feel even more angry, you have more of the bitter, right? Feeling more betrayed, feeling more rejected, feeling more abandoned, feeling more worthlessness because you're like, wait, I'm not even worthy of you acknowledging the harm that you caused, right? It just causes that to escalate and intensify, right? And so forgiveness is really you flipping that and recognizing, like, no, I will forgive by me choosing to let go when I want to like I'm choosing to let go now. I don't need to wait on this person to do all these perfect things, right? Because they're pretty much looking for perfection from the other person. Because half of the time they apologize, you're like that wasn't enough. You didn't say sorry the way I need you to say sorry. It didn't look right on your face. I didn't see the emotion I needed, right? Or you ask them, why did you do it? What happened? They tell you, they're honest, or they really don't know, or they just tell you what they feel like telling you. That's not going to be enough, right? Nothing is never going to be enough to really heal the harm because you're hurt. Nothing's ever going to be enough for you until you say, I'm ready to let go. I'm going, even though it wasn't right. It's all about you. At the end that you are saying when you're ready, it's just determining ready when you let go, or ready when this person perfects and doing all the things that will check off all the boxes that you say deserves forgiveness and for you to let go. And so those are just some of that's why we're talking about, right? When you are, releasing yourself from that trying to punish the other person. That's a lot of work. Just think about how stressful that is. That's stressful, y'all. Saying mad is stressful. I don't know. Put a amen in the chat, right? Like being angry is stressful, y'all. Saying angry is just stressful because it can cause you to be like have a good day and you see the person mood changed, right? It can cause you to have a good day. You listen to a certain song, or it can cause you to have you could be having a good day and also you just hear a certain word and your lip is turned up, right? I mean, like staying mad is it's just stressful. It's just stressful, and it's unnecessary. Like you don't have to stay. You don't have to stay that way. It's choice. It's your choice, and forgiveness can help you release yourself from that experience. Another reason why you should forgive is let me see, where was I at? Releasing yourself from past. Yeah. Okay. The last one, repairing the relationship so you can provide yourself with the closure you need. So just piggybacking off of what I just said about staying angry is just stressful, right? When you are focusing on I'm forgiving because I need to repair this relationship so I can just move on, right? Repair can be I'm just gonna have a conversation because sometimes we stay angry and we don't forgive. And I'm never talking to this person ever again. You want me to talk to the person? You want me to apologize? You want me to say where I went wrong? Psh, I'm not doing that. They did it first, or they hurt me more, or I wouldn't have did that if this person didn't say this, right? And then so we are just stubborn, right? Because of the anger and the bitterness and all the other emotions I mentioned earlier, it's causing us to be like, no, I'm not doing that, right? And then we end up being satisfied and okay with the relationship still having the harm and the tension within it. And so we end up keeping the tension, which causes more tension in our lives. And we think, well, I don't see that person anymore, so it don't matter. Or I don't work with that person anymore. Or we're no longer in a relationship together, so it doesn't even matter. But it does, because it's going to show up in your next work relationship. If a job did you dirty and now you go into work with work trauma, and now your boss says one thing or a coworker says one thing, you immediately are starting to twitch like, oh, I remember because that last time that happened, right? You didn't forgive. So now you're bringing that work trauma to work. Or relationship. You're bringing that hurt from the other person to the new relationship, right? Because you didn't let go and you didn't repair and allow yourself to have closure. And so allowing us to repair the relationship. And it can be from to have a conversation. It can be where you're allowing yourself to be able to even just recognize, even on your own, maybe you don't have the space or the opportunity to have a conversation. Part of the repair is also you saying to yourself, well, where I went wrong, not in an unhealthy shame way. Remember, we talked about unhealthy shame, not where you are taking responsibility and sitting in it and being really critical on yourself, but where you're taking responsibility and saying, you know what, you know, I can't even lie. I did some wrong things too, or I shouldn't have said this. And because I know when I said that, then that caused that person to be offended. And that's when they offended me back. Like I recognize that I didn't handle it that well. Right. When you just allow yourself to recognize the harm that you even caused in it, because it takes two sometimes with a conflict, right? And maybe you didn't necessarily cause harm, but maybe it was just something that you misspoke or you didn't give the right information. And you just recognize, like, I wasn't clear. I will admit that I can recognize how, because I wasn't clear, that led to X, right? And those are different ways to kind of help you repair the relationship so you can get rid of that tension that's in your life, that's keeping you connected to that relationship. Share in the chat if there's any other thoughts you guys have about why you think it's important to forgive. Also, if you have any questions, put in the chat too. Feel free to put any questions you have in the chat. Any other thoughts on why you think it's important to share? Share important to forgive. And again, feel free to share this in the chat. I had for those who came in a little after, I had tech issue. My webcam disconnected, and I tried to reconnect it, and it wouldn't connect while I was still live. So I had to shut it down and start all over with a brand new live link. So people that have contacted, or if you follow me, um, they might be trying to get on the wrong link. So if you know anybody, share the link. Let them know we here. We are having a conversation. And let them know that it's a different link now. So feel free to share the link, or let them know just to log in to Speak Life Transformation TV on YouTube. Is youtube.com/at Speak Life Transformation TV, and they can get on and join us in this conversation. Let me see what it says in the chat. Yeah, you know what? That happens too, right? Where you forgive and the other person isn't ready to forgive. So we're going to actually, that goes right toward like how to forgive, right? Because sometimes some people aren't ready to forgive. And this goes back to also even when I said about repairing the relationship. So let's say that it's not even just you that's still upset about it. The other person's still upset. So both of you are still upset. And you're ready to repair. You're like, listen, I'm just ready to move on. Like, I don't want to have this tension in this relationship. And you're ready to have the conversation. You're ready to repair the relationship. But that person isn't ready. And that person still is really upset about it. Going back to what I was saying before about not having any control over the other person, there's nothing you can do about that other than give them time. Honestly, give them the space that they need and the time. If if you're recognizing that reaching out to them It's causing things to escalate, like causing more tension and not making it worse instead of getting better, right? If you recognize that, trying to communicate in any way or to do any type of repair is just causing it to escalate and get worse. You just have to recognize, listen, um, this person isn't ready. And that is okay because everybody has their own time, right? So not even take it personally, where it's like, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I didn't, approach them the right way, or maybe I was too harsh. A lot of times that has nothing to do with you because they might be still holding on to it because there's something else going on with them that's making it hard for them to forgive themselves, right? They might be struggling with forgiving because there have been other hurts that happened to them in the past that has made forgiveness difficult for them. Or maybe something you did was very similar and from their perspective to a past hurt. And so this is just like the icing on the cake, right? Or cherry on top, right? And so it's just harder for them to begin. So a lot of times, honestly, it has nothing to do with you. And so all you can do is make the attempt to repair. And if they are still like, I hear you, but I'm still mad, you just got to respect that. And you just let them do whatever healing process they need. And if that space is a forever space where it never ends up being what it was, the relationship never ends up being what it was, or it is just a long-term space and it's not until years later or months later you end up talking to the person, you just have to respect that's what is. Now, here's the trick here. Because sometimes it's like, well, I did all this. I done try to reach out to this person. I try to be kind. I didn't want to reach out to this person. I was trying to do the olive branch and I just got my hand slapped. And that rejection caused you to go back to the hurt and the harm. And even though you say you forgive, now you really didn't. Now it's like comes back up and you're going back to a place of unforgiveness because now you are feeling hurt again by that person or feeling rejected by that person because you tried to repair it or you tried to apologize and they didn't want it, right? And you know that that there's a level of you not forgiving if that person finally, whether it's months later, year later, days later, right? They finally decide to have a conversation. You're like, well, I don't even want to have a conversation with you anymore. It's over. Like, I don't want to talk about this. This is old, right? That's an example of you still now having some harm or some hurt about the rejection you felt when you tried to repair it and they didn't want to repair. So it's really checking yourself on that because you could have forgave about the first hurt and now you upset with them about the second hurt, which is the rejection of you trying to repair. So it's like so many ways that it can creep up on us without us even recognizing it, without us even knowing it. But again, because you still got a little stank attitude about the person, or you talk to somebody else about the person or a situation, and you find yourself getting upset about it. You find yourself getting hype over it. You still got to work on that forgiveness. You still got to work on that forgiveness. So I hope that answers your question. So let's go into how to forgive. 4 stages. I'm gonna go over with you guys 4 stages. It's gonna be really brief, not really step by step, but just more if you guys have an understanding and for you to know what that looks like, right? So one is just uncovering, and I got this from. Let me give you the resource of where I got this from one of my counseling resources that I have. Where is oh, here it is. I have too many windows. Are you also like me that has like multiple windows on your computer open and you try to find what tab is it again? Yeah, that's me. All right. So this is from NYRD Fitzgibbons. It's from the Helping Clients Forgive, an empirical guide for resolving anger. It was within the American Association, so it was like a empirical article. All right, so here we go. Unforgiveness. So, I'm sorry, not unforgiveness. Uncovering. So, uncovering. The first step is to uncover. In order to forgive, you gotta know, what are you forgiving? Like, what actually is the hurt? Like, why are we hurt in the first place? Sometimes we are angry and we're like, I don't even know why I'm angry, right? I don't even know why I'm so upset with this person. I don't even know what the person said or what the person did, right? Or you just were so caught up in the emotions that you never really even allowed yourself to just step back and process, where is this even coming from, right? So the first thing you want to do is uncover the harm. what was the harm that was done, right? And not even the person, but really being specific about the action and behavior. What was it, right? And as you're doing that, you want to define, like once you define what the harm is, identify like how it has impacted you. Really uncover how has this impacted how I see the world, how I see this person, how I see the relationship, what kind of emotions has it caused, what kind of disruption has it caused in my life? Because sometimes we end up having so much hurt that it impacts how we show up at work, it impacts our sleep, it impacts our appetite, it impacts wanting to be around certain people, groups of people, it impacts, like I said earlier about avoiding, we start avoiding things, avoiding people or places, right? Like thinking about like how is this harm impact? Am I more irritable now? Do I find myself, being a certain way about around certain groups, right? Watching certain things, cause me to feel anxious or nervous or upset, right? Like really thinking about like how has this hurt impacted my life, impacted how I see the world, impacted how I think, impacted how I feel, impact how I feel, right? So that's part of the uncovering. So really exploring that. The second part is decision. Now, I always tell my clients, this is the most important part, is deciding if you want to forgive. So one of the last session last week, someone said, when I asked us like what kind of things you want to learn about forgiveness, they said they want practical tips, right? So practical strategy, practical tip. So going back to uncovering real quick, a practical way to do that uncovering is to there's a few ways you can do it. I would say you can journal the experience, right? Like literally write a journal entry describing in detail the experience and how it has impacted you. Even if it's like a story format, right? If you want to do it as if you're doing a narration of your life and the experience, right? A beginning, middle, and end, right? Or just like free writing in a journal entry. Another way you could do lists if you're not really necessarily someone who wants to like write it in journal form or like story form. List. You could do the two different categories, right? Like I said, like what is the hurt? And then you just ask your question, well, what was the hurt? And then you can either list or answer the question, right? And then the second part, remember we talked, then that's like, how did this hurt impact my life? Right. And then you can just list down like how is it impacted? And you could do, like I said, you could do it in categories if you want to do like in tables, and you could say relationships, emotions, work, home, right? And then in each of those categories, you can list down how has hurt impact you in those different categories. So those are some examples of how you can do the uncovering piece to really help you really process the impact that hurt has had on your life. Then we go to the decision. So the decision is so important because you decide if you're going to forgive or not. And you got to keep it real with yourself, right? Like, are you going to forgive or you not going to forgive? Don't lie to yourself and say, oh, yeah, I'm going to forgive. And then when it's time to do the work, you're like, I don't feel like it, or I really don't want to do it. Or you're like halfway doing the work and halfway not. This is not a like in and out thing, right? Forgiveness is an all in thing. And it requires work, which is why the third part is called work. So you first have to decide, am I really ready to let this go? And if you're not sure, go back to the why, right? What I said earlier about why you should forgive, right? And I'll do a recap of that. It releases yourself from the bondage that the bondage of these emotional hurts, the bondage of avoiding people or places, the bondage of judging certain groups and avoiding certain groups, right? It releases you from from punishing your past self for information you have, your present self has, right? It's the reason why you should forgive is it's taking responsibility or holding yourself accountable, right? Taking that off, right? Recognizing that I don't need to punish myself or get revenge on the other person in order to forgive, because it's not about the person, it's about me. It's about me letting go. It's about me taking back control by letting go and choosing now is the time I'm ready to forgive. Not I'm gonna wait for this person to do all the perfect things that I determine deserves forgiveness. It's like, no, I deserve forgiveness. I'm not doing this because I think I'm doing it because I'm waiting for me to decide when they deserve forgiveness. I'm doing this because I deserve to be free. I deserve to forgive so I can be free from all the things that's connected to this hurt. And the last one is repairing relationship. You want to just repair, get rid of the tension. Like, we don't need to have stressful relationships. Like, you release yourself, you repair to protect your peace. That's how you protect your peace, by getting rid of the relationships, and getting rid of relationships that are toxic or that are that have been causing stress is not just like getting rid of it as in like avoiding, right? Because a lot of times, again, we think that's setting boundaries, but it's really revengeful boundaries. But it's actually repairing. Repairing the relationship is what helps you then allow yourself to move on and be at peace. Because if you just get rid of the relationship, you're not gonna have full peace because you're gonna still be upset when you think about the person, be around the person, or somebody else is talking about the person, or you know somebody that knows somebody, and that's connected to that person. You're gonna still be like, I don't even want to be around them because that's their best friend. I don't want them to come over here asking me questions, and then before you know it, you're avoiding people, right? So the repair helps you to then be able to be at peace with the situation and that relationship. So deciding whether you want to forgive or not is so important. So you go through the work, and that's the next part, work. So work is now you are. Somebody said this earlier about changing your perception. So the work is what that is. It's now you allowing yourself to step out of the hurt, step out of your own self, out of your own pain, your own perspective of the situation, and allowing yourself to come from a empathetic point of view to see, well, what was this person going through? Why did they even, instead of you looking for closure and asking the person why they did what they did, right? You can based on the environment, based on the situation, right? Based on what you know about the person, you can kind of have an idea of why they did what they did. Here's a perfect example. One group of people that we often have a lot of hurts with is parents, right? Parents, nobody, no, and for those who are parents now, you guys know, like, it's hard being a parent, and it's hard to know what decisions to make in moments, right? And also, you're human, so you make mistakes, right? And unfortunately, sometimes our parents made decisions that weren't the best decisions in the moment. Going back to you do what you do what you think is best. In the moment, you thought it was best, but it later ended up having long-term effects, or in that moment had a long-term effect. And so sometimes as children, we hold our parents accountable for decisions they made, right? Whether it's abandoning us, whether it's being really harsh on us, whether it's not having enough structure, whether it's saying certain things, right? Holding certain rules, expectations, whatever that is, right? And it can cause us to be really upset with them. But when we think about it, right, we step back and we're like, well, let's think about where our parents have come from, right? Let's think about their background, their childhood. I know how grandma was, and she wasn't the easiest, or she didn't show love. And so if she didn't show love, how would my mom or my dad know how to show love? Or how my dad would know how to show love if he didn't grow up in a home where showing love and affection was a thing, right? Instead, totally makes sense of then why my dad struggles with showing love. Or, if my mom, had a really hard mom, and it was just like, really easy on the boys, but when it came to the girls, like my grandma was really, really hard on my mom on how to, she got to take care of the kids. You got to, you got to be responsible. You got to, right? And so that would make sense though. Well, then why my mom is really, hard on me, but really easy on my brothers, right? It's like really thinking about, like, it's allowing you to step out of the hurt, step out of the pain, and thinking like, okay, what really caused this person to do what they did? That's work, because you have to let go of our pride will say, well, no, they don't deserve empathy because what about me? Right? Nobody's asking how this impacted me, or why this impacted me, right? Or I don't think, I don't, you know, that's excuse, right? Part of it is say, well, that's just finding an excuse of why they did what they did. That's giving them an excuse or an out. And it's like, no, 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 no. Empathy, and this is not just with forgiveness, this is in general. Empathy gets a bad rep because a lot of times it's thinking, well, if I'm allowing myself to be empathetic, then I'm giving this person an excuse for why they're doing what they're doing. No, no. It's just allowing you to understand why they do what they do. It's not excusing them for their behavior, but it's helping you to understand. That's how we are able to get to a place of connection with other people. We get out of it, and somebody said this earlier. Sometimes we put our own perspectives, our own expectations on others, and we're expecting them to show up the way we show up. When we step out of our own selves, our own personal expectations, our own personal point of view, and we allow our view to widen to somebody else's world, right? We allow our view to widen to somebody else's perspective, then we're not so narrow-minded. When you think, what does open-minded mean? Open-minded means you're not just, you know, focused on your own understanding. Open-minded means you're open to hear other people's ideas and points of views and understanding other people's understandings, right? And their knowledge. And that's what empathy is allowing you saying, you know what, I want to be open to understanding somebody else's point of view. And when you do that, it helps you change your perspective of the person that harmed you. Because now it's no longer like, how could they? Why would they even do that? That's just like so stupid or so harmful. Like they knew that I wouldn't do that to them, or they knew what I meant by that. Why would they even do that? Right. But when you step back, I was like, well, let me think, why would that person do that? What was going on in their life? What was going on that day? Maybe it has nothing to do with their past. Maybe it was something that happened in that moment, in that day, earlier in the day, right? Or in that moment, the way things were going on. Like, oh, you know what? That's where sometimes we take on responsibility. Well, I wasn't clear, or I did say with an attitude. So I can see why they might have snapped back, or they might have said that because I'm not even going to front. When I saw this person look at me that way, I immediately had an attitude. And so it came out. I know it came out with an attitude because I was thinking like, how dare they? And so probably came out that way. And then I can see how that person responded. Right. So when you allow yourself to step out of your own self and get that empathy, then you can change your perception. Because then it's no longer this person is disrespectful, um, selfish. This person is inconsiderate, a liar, a cheat, right? It no longer becomes these like negative labels. It becomes more of like, this person is a person, and I can see why they did what they did. I have a better understanding. So that brings down the intensity of the hurt, the anger, the bitterness. Because now it's like you're being more open to like, okay, I get it. And you start to assume the best in that person instead of assuming the worst. They just because they don't have no manners. They just because they don't care about anybody else. It is because they're crazy and they always doing crazy things, right? And it's like, well, no, they did this because whatever that because is, finish the sentence, and it helps you kind of have a better understanding. So part of the work is stepping out of yourself and allowing yourself to kind of understand that. And that gives you understand where the other person is coming from. And that gives yourself the ability to show some grace and compassion towards the other person. The only way you're going to be able to forgive, is if you're able to have empathy and compassion toward a person. Like full forgiveness, the only way you're going to be able to let go is have compassion and empathy. Another example I could think of is there was this person. I remember, I forget what family. It was one of the murders. The I can't remember. I forget what parent it was, but one of the males over during COVID time. Um, one of the males who were murdered, and the mom. And if you guys remember this, the parent or the son or the parent, please put it in a chat. I forget which one, but the mother was on the stand and she verbally said she forgave the person. And I mean, the country was up in roar. Up, they were upset. Like, could she forgive? Like, what? Why would she even forgive the person? She was on national television when they interviewed her, and she also said she forgave. And she was talking about the reason why she was forgiving is because she recognized like saying angry is not going to help. That's not going to bring my son back. And she was empathetic towards the murderers as well. Like, well, recognizing that they deserve forgiveness and they probably have gone through some things that led to this. And people thought she was crazy for doing that. But you can see the level of peace she had over it because she wasn't staying angry over it. She wasn't there. I mean, not saying her hurt was gone, but the intensity and the bitterness and the anger of that, like definitely she's still hurt. She doesn't have her son, but the anger towards the murderer was gone, right? The anger towards the offender was gone. Hurt doesn't go away. That goes back to what we were saying. When you forgive, it's not about forgetting. She's never going to forget that her son was murdered. Never. She's never going to forget that. And every day is going to, the hurt will get better, but she's still going to be hurt. Her heart is never going to be the same. Remember, you talked about the uncovering. How has the hurt changed your life? Her life has changed forever. It's never going to be the same with her son not being there, right? So when you're uncovering, you're thinking about that, like, how is it long-term effects that the harm is caused, right? So, those are some things that happen in her life. But by forgiving the offender, right, she no longer has this like stronghold of the bitterness and the anger and just wanting to get revenge and wanting to constantly continue to fight and attack and make sure they have death penalty. Again, all that stuff is not even in her control. Is all up to the courts, all up to justice, right? And then when the justice don't turn out your way, again, when the perfect outcome for the closure, right? If our perfect outcome is they get death penalty, they die in prison, or they never get to see their families again. Like my son can't see his family again. Like all that bitterness and things you have no control over just ends up causing you to feel more upset because you don't even have control over half of the things happening to that person. So letting that go also helps you let go of having that compassion, helps you let go of even trying to like control things that you don't have control over. So that's part of that work. That's why it's work. And do know forgiveness is not an overnight thing. This is a process, as you can tell. This is a process. It's a journey, right? And so part of getting yourself to a place of empathy is even telling yourself, like, giving yourself the permission. It's okay to show this person empathy. If you're continuing to tell yourself they don't deserve it, they don't deserve my empathy, they don't deserve my grace, they don't deserve none of it, they should just rot in hell. Like if that's what you're going to say to yourself over and over again, you're going to stay upset. You're going to stay bonded. And think about that. Think about when you're saying those things, think about how much you are still connected to the harm. How long ago did that harm happen to you? How many years ago did that harm happen to you? How many days ago did that harm happen to you? And you still are feeling it intently as it happened 2 seconds ago. That alone should help you recognize why you should just let this go. Because it's disrupting your life in ways you don't need to. And you deserve peace. You deserve peace. And then the final one is deepening. So it's finding a deeper meaning. Like as you do the work and you're going through the empathy, you're also figuring out like, let me find a deeper reason to let this go. Let me find a deeper purpose for my forgiveness. Let me figure out what it is, even if you're redefining what forgiveness means specifically for you, like you have a definition of it, but like when you're like making it personal for you, like what is it? What is this purpose for me? What do I want to get out of this forgiveness for me? Not for the other person. Again, not about letting this person go and deciding when they deserve forgiveness, but you deciding like how, what is this purpose for me? Like how do I want this forgiveness to change my life? What is the purpose for the forgiveness on my life? Acknowledge when you provide grace and forgiveness, right? And when you didn't deserve it, right? Another thing to think about deepening is like think about those times where you were forgiven, you didn't deserve it. Think about those times when someone gave you grace and you didn't deserve the grace, and how that changed your life, how that helped you out in that moment. And would you take it back? If you're like, well, I don't really care because it's not that important. So would you give that back? Would you want to go back and say, okay, you can, I would rather that person to stay to not forgive me? You probably wouldn't want to give it back. You're probably very grateful that the person gave you the forgiveness that you did not deserve because you actually did the wrong thing, or it made sense for them to stay angry, but they decided not to and it forgave you. Think about how that changed your life. Think about how that helped repair the relationship as well, if it did. And so using that to deeper understanding of, wow, like forgiveness, being on the other end, I can see how it can impact not only the other person's life in the repairing piece, but how like, I didn't deserve it and I got it anyway. And so grace is about people getting good when they don't deserve good. And it's showing that love and helping you release and giving that giving love back, even if the person deserves, because you recognize that by releasing that and still showing love is helping me feel at peace. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. Please put in the chat any questions that you have regarding anything I talked about today. It was a longer one today than usual because I had to start a little later because I had to reboot. My voice lasted. I'm happy about that. As you guys are writing in the chat some questions, I want you to know how you can get connected with me. If you know anybody, if you or you know anybody that's looking for a therapist and they reside in New Jersey and or Pennsylvania, I am accepting new clients. You can go to speakliketransformation.com to get more information or to share with them. I currently do have some openings. Get it while it's hot because therapy slots go quick. So again, I focus on anxiety and depression. I focus on life transitions, and my types of techniques are more like a cognitive behavior therapy, so helping you recognize how your thoughts connect with how you act and how you feel, and also do a lot of psychodynamic where I have you kind of do some deep dives into how like your life experiences may be causing how you think, and then determining how you act and behave. And I use a lot of that to help with your healing process. So if you know anybody who's looking for a therapist, hit me up. I'm about to put my website on in the chat for you to share with anybody that would like any services. And also, on that same on the website, on the top of the banner is a free e-course. So if you would like to learn more about how to get through doubt and fear, because you recognize that's stopping you from going after those career goals that you really want to go after, or start that business, write that book, because there's some fear and doubt stopping you, then click the link on the banner. I'm gonna for 5 days hop in your email and give you different tips and skills on how to get past that doubt and fear, and be able to really go after that the career goals that you want to go after and live the best life as your best self. So thank you everyone who showed up. Next week, I've been committed so far. I think this is like number 4 or 5. No, it's probably number 4. So I'm doing well. So we're gonna keep it going every Monday at 7 p.m. here on the Speed Like Transformation TV. Subscribe. So moments like this where I lost I lost connection and I went back to being live, you will automatically get notified when I go live, when I post something. So subscribe to the YouTube channel so that, put the notification, make sure you turn on the notifications so that when I go live, you automatically get a personal notification that's letting you know that I'm live and I'm here waiting for you to log on. And also if you decide to connect with that course, you'll be on my email list, and I also send weekly emails to my email subscribers, letting them know about it too, with the links directly in there. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can subscribe to my email list as well. Both of those ways can definitely get you connected and not miss a thing. Next week, what is next week's topic? I'm going to give you guys a heads up. Next week's topic is going to be I don't know, actually. I thought I had something to get. I don't know what my next week topic is going to be. Haven't figured that out, but I will definitely be posting it on Insta. Speed Life Transformation is my Insta account. Living Speed Life is my Facebook, and TikTok is also Speed Life Transformation. So hope you guys have an awesome night, and I will see you next Monday at 7 p.m. here on Speed Life Transformation TV YouTube channel. Have a good night, guys.